Just about everybody in the Phoenix Suns brain trust has changed in the year 2023. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, Phoenix Suns beat reporter Duane Rankin joins us to answer the question of how all of that could affect their culture this upcoming season. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for making Locked On Suns your first listen on Thursday. Hopefully your first listen. We are coming to you a little bit later, but appreciate each and every one of you for joining us. Hit follow, hit subscribe if you have not already. We're free and available everywhere, including YouTube. All you have to do is hit that button. Get this show in your feed every Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Suns every day between now and the end of next year's free agency. That is my commitment to you. All you got to do to get it is follow, subscribe. Of course, today's show is with Duane Rankin, the beat reporter at the Arizona Republic of these Phoenix Suns. He has been on this show numerous times. You know his work, you know him, and we're going to talk culture. Duane, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a little while, and this is a perfect time to catch up because you have been at all the press conferences. You've been in all the places that not all of us have, and you've interviewed Frank Vogel recently for a piece, interviewed James Jones earlier in the summer. So I think you are one of the only people that can speak in some ways to what we're talking about today, since it is early on in this new era for the Suns. But if I just were to kind of ask you in a general sense, with all those changes, what the biggest effect on the culture, positively, negatively, I doubt you'll say negatively because we don't know, but what's the effect going to be on how it feels in that locker room, in that practice facility day to day, versus how it might have the past 3 years?
Again, I understand the whole idea of culture, but the culture was pretty good. Monty Williams, like I mean, it was. I mean, they had a sense of commitment, a sense of, as he called them, a work team.
Yep.
And I think there were a lot of guys that they had on the roster. I think the roster changes is more of it than the culture. And then that will affect roster change. Okay, who does what? You know, you don't have guys in the locker room now like Chris Paul who held guys accountable. You don't have Torrey Craig, who's a guy that, you know, just blue collar, you know, would do whatever to help the team win. So on the one hand, you lost the one guy, you traded away the one guy that held everyone accountable, and then, you know, Torrey obviously isn't back with the team. But on the flip side, you know, you're bringing in Bradley Beal, and, you know, the word has been, well, hey, you know, they want him to be himself. They don't want him to change. They want him to continue to be the player that he is. And so you're asking, like, how does he fit in? Like, you're still wondering, how does he fit in? And that's part of the culture. Like, how do guys? Because now, you know, when you have Durant and Booker and Beal, now you got a little Hollywood going here, you know, and so now it's like, okay, how does that work? How does you know, Durant's first full training camp? Okay, how does he? I mean, because last season was just a rush job. Hey, look, get in, try to figure this out. He got hurt, then, you know, so you didn't really know. You don't really know how he's going to mesh with guys. It was on the fly. So how does he mesh with guys? I think that impacts the culture right out the box, and then it becomes Vogel's job. How does he bring everyone together? You know, he's talked about building relationships, wanting guys to, you know, to have, you know, their personal lives and things of that nature. So how does that work? As he's talked about, he's had numerous conversations with players. So they're building a rapport. Okay, how does that translate once you get in the locker room and you start the season? Okay, you start well, all right, it looks good. Well, if you start bad, okay, then now you'll see how those relationships that he's built, how that impacts what they do moving forward. So I'm more interested in the whole idea of how the players take to each other because it's basically a new roster, and then how does Vogel bring that together, and then what does James Jones do in terms of okay, we may need this now. Okay, I see what it is after a couple months. We need this now with this team. Okay, does that mean you're making a move? I see moves coming. I just don't see how you stay pat even with the team that they have. I don't see how you do it. You got four max guys. I know Aiton is the one guy that they're like, hey, you're hearing if they're gonna move somebody, it's gonna be him. How does that work? Like, how is James gonna see the roster and then figure that out moving forward on what they need? And then on top of all of that is obviously Matt Ishbia, the new team owner. He's already shown that look, I'm willing to spend money, I'm willing to trade whoever, I'm willing to do whatever to make this happen. And so now what's the next step in that? Does he continue to be that person? Or does he say, hey, look, let's just pause for a second and let's just see how this plays out? I'm interested in those kind of things when I think about culture because, again, the moves that they've made have told you, okay, they're willing to do whatever. Will they continue to be able to have that mentality, do whatever, do what they have to do when you look at the money they're spending? I mean, it's just a lot to unpack. So I'm curious about all of those things and how that leads to what they end up doing with the roster. Because to me, I look at it and I go, a lot of talent, is this going to work? And if it doesn't work early, or if they're looking at it, go, well, what do we need to do to change it? Now, what is Ishbia willing to do along with James to make this happen, to make the roster better? Because the goal is championship. No matter how you get the roster to the playoffs, whatever that is what you're going with. So the obvious shown they're willing to make changes. Is that more to come? Or will that be his MO on how he develops the team? Or will he stick to something and say, this is what we're doing?
So let's get to the Jones and Ishbia stuff as we move forward. But I want to return to the player side that you mentioned to start things off, because I agree that's just as, if not more relevant than some of the front office and whatever. Because at the end of the day, like they compete and they're going to set the tone in their own way. And that departure of Chris Paul is a big one. It remains to be seen, whether you would call it good or bad, but it's going to be very different. I kind of think of it though too in this season or with this incarnation of the roster as somewhat of a work team in a different way, right? Like I guess that's what Monty said, but to me that always came across as like instituting a program of improvement and development as a group and as individuals, because the team was starting from a place of being really young and raw, right? But I think that Vogel's approach, combined with what we know about Durant and Booker and what it seems like is true about Beal, although I can't speak to him nearly as well, is that is kind of the approach too there of, as long as the best players and the coach are coming hungry and with I guess like creativity or willingness to kind of tinker and try stuff and be aggressive, then that'll just trickle down, and the young guys, the role players, everybody will just sort of play up to that level and be ready for anything because the coach and the best players are. But it is that's pretty different than how things kind of worked around here before. I think a lot of it just comes down to Booker, and that seems to me that it would be the environment he would kind of set around here if it was up to him, and it kind of is up to him now.
Well, just speaking on that, I talked with Devin about this a couple times over the years, and he said that Chris is the one that will call people out. That he wasn't necessarily, Devin himself wasn't necessarily the one that would do that all the time.
Yeah.
And that Chris was the one that he knows will do that. Okay, so is Devin going to be that person that calls out people? Is he going to be the one that's in guys' face? Constant. Chris was constant. There was no let up in him. Devin going to be that constant person that does that. Is he the one to be that? Maybe it's Bradley Beal. We don't know.
Or does it have to be anybody, right? Does that have to happen?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to, but if you look at teams, and this is a different era. I mean, earlier you might have a guy, this is my team, or this is my team, you might have that, like a LeBron, like it's his team. He's the one that holds folks accountable. He's the one that leads. Whereas, more recent teams, it's been more of a collective. I think Denver is more of a collective. Milwaukee, more of a collective. I think those teams are more of, more than one person. And the Suns were like that too. I mean, Jay Crowder, when he was there, he was a behind the scenes guy. He wasn't the in your face out in public. He was the one that was behind us. Hey, look, man, let's just relax here. We need you to do this, and that kind of stuff. But who are those guys? Doesn't have to be one guy, but Devin is the guy. So you would think it would be him, but it doesn't have to be one guy. We don't know. It was Kevin going through a training camp now. Is he going to be more comfortable going to somebody and be like, hey, whether it's DeAndre or whether it's whoever, hey, look, man, and with each other. That's the other thing. Like this big three, like all three of those going to hold each other to this higher standard, because they are what's going to move and make this team go. Like if they don't come to play, if they don't play well, this team has no shot at winning the championship. They don't have other guys on the team that can make up for that. So are they going to hold each other to this higher standard that makes each of them want to play at a higher level? And then it becomes all right. And then the other guy looking at them and go, oh wow, Kevin just said something to Devin. Okay. So if Devin's handling it and can take that, all right, then I'm Damian Lee. I'm taking this. I'm Yuta. I'm taking this. I'm Base Doc. I'm taking this. So that's where the great teams seem to police themselves. Miami has this culture, but at the same time, Jimmy Butler is that guy. There's nobody arguing that. They're like, it's him. So it's like, how do they make this all mesh and work? And I'm very curious to see how all of that plays out, particularly early in the season when they're going to have kinks. They're going to be trying to figure out who gets frustrated with who. Who says, hey,
I mean, I think the way you're putting it tracks with where my head's at. And I think the way you're putting it is helpful context, because I feel like Book was doing that more toward the end of last season, and it does inevitably. I think we could expect Kevin Durant to change his stripes in his mid-30s, but I just don't think he wants to be that on a team, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And Beal is, at the end of the day, the most recent addition, as well as the third on the pecking order at best, and also has been a pretty quiet guy through his career. So inevitably it's going to have to be Booker, but that doesn't mean that Devin Booker has to become Chris Paul, right? It can be its own approach. I think the Miami example and other ones are good, where it doesn't have to be one guy barking at everybody, but it does have to be, at the end of the day, the buck stops with who, And I think that's, especially with a coach that's not known for being in everybody's faces either. Right. I think that will have to settle itself out. It will be a storyline early in the season. Let's talk about what might be a storyline later in the season, which is additional moves, additional pressure potentially to make moves or whatever. If that start is not perfect, we'll do that after a quick break. Today's show brought to you by Jase Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you peace of mind so that you're not just hoping you have access to medication in an emergency. You know you do. Jase Medical, make sure you have the medication in hand, and Jase Medical is simple. Think of it like a first aid kit for antibiotics. You don't want to be without a Band-Aid. You don't want to be without pain meds. You also don't want to be stuck without antibiotics. Jase Medical handles everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery, as well as ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting those life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the code LOCKEDON at checkout over at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKED ON. All right, coming back with Duane Rankin, beat reporter covering the Phoenix Suns for the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com, talking culture and talking about the changes in the Suns' brain trust as well as the roster, really every single thing about this franchise outside of James Jones. So let's start with him, actually, because he hasn't changed. With the part of what I've always said, Duane, that I think James is good at as an executive, part of why he's been successful, even though fans have gotten frustrated that he's not as aggressive at times, or maybe not as vocal and front and center as different people are. But I think his kind of superpower as an executive to me is he knows how to work with the people that are on his team at any given time and execute whatever the vision is of that group, whether that's Robert Sarver, whether that's Monty Williams, whether that's now Matt Ishbia.
Right.
Like, we've seen Jones do whatever kind of the job at hand was as the people giving him that job changed. Okay, go get Torrey Craig back for me from Monty Williams. Or,
Right.
when he first took the job, it's like, tear this thing down and make us respectable again, please. That was the instructions
Bring
from
in
Robert
vets.
Sarver. Now,
Right.
now Matt Ishbia, it's like, do whatever you need to do to get me superstars. And he did it, right? So
Right.
I guess my question there is, now that Monty's gone and Vogel and Jones, obviously he hired Monty, but that feels a little different. He kind of went through a more sprawling process this time and landed on Vogel. What do you think the vision or the new perspective, like, are we going to see a new kind of vibe from James Jones now that he's kind of a little more the guy around this franchise? I mean, he's always been, but he has a promotion and he had, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it going to be different or more of the same?
Well, it's interesting because, there was the whole idea that, Ishbia is in and the Ishbia is making the decisions, and then James isn't making isn't making as many decisions as Ishbia. It's more like Ishbia was, hey, look, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Jones deserves a serious amount of credit for what he was able to do with the limited dollars that he had. I mean, he brought in some dudes that I'm like, wow, like, they got that guy, they got him, they got Eric Gordon for what they got him for. It's like he brought some guys that can help you win, and so on minimum deals, and so if you want to talk about culture, one of the things I find interesting, I think what the Suns' motto is now is that, okay, look, we're going to bring you in. You got a chance to win a championship. If you do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get your money, whether it might be with somebody else. You might come in and blow up and play well for us, win a title, and another team wants you, and then you get paid that way. I mean, I'm looking at Jock Landale. Like, look, did you see his contract? So I'm going, wow. I'm like, maybe that's the motto. Maybe that's going to be the motto if they're going to continually be in a situation where they're over the second tax apron and they have very little money, that they're going to bring guys and say, look, you have a chance to play with Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, DeAndre Ayton. You have a chance to win a championship here, and then you have a player opt, and then you can go and really get paid somewhere else, or get paid more than what we're paying.
Yeah,
I think that is something that it takes a certain kind of player now, because you're betting on yourself. Josh Okogie betting on himself. Like, he's coming back, and he's like, well, I got to make this happen where I can eventually get money. So that is what you may end up seeing in terms of Jones's selling point, not necessarily develop guys, but say, look, you're already developed. You've already did this for 3-4 years. We're going to bring you in, and you're going to get a chance to play on the biggest stage because the Suns are the show now. Like, I mean, like Ayton is just said it, like we're the show. Like they're really the show now. Like this right here is about to be something crazy. So now these guys are coming in, and if Cater Base, if he plays well, I mean, there's going to be teams like looking at him like, hey, you can help. If you help them win one, maybe you can help us win one. So because it's only giving them 1 2 year, giving them 2-year deals. So it's like they're coming in, and if they play well and help a team win a championship, then that makes their value is higher. And then somebody else may want it, or the Suns might end up. But I could see that being the formula, considering the money situation that they're in right now.
And the quote, the phrase that James Jones used to you in that interview was that I've really clung on to was mid-prime veteran.
Right.
And that's the key. That's the code word that I think, it really explains their approach here is, and they do just like the front office, I don't know who they would give credit to. I mean, they're not the types to say this guy or that guy. It's a team thing for them, but they did a great job in their kind of pro scouting department, right? Like, what are the guys around the league that are underrated, undervalued, but are actually quietly, they actually already have proved it. Like, we're not talking about young guys who, Peyton Pritchard in Boston, who people think might finally step up, but he's never played. It's just kind of a guess. It's like, no, these guys are Keita Bates-Diop, Drew Eubanks, Yuta Watanabe, like these, even Jordan Goodwin, getting him in the trade. Like, these are guys where they've had flashes. Now let's see what they can do on a great team. It is pretty similar to what, the Suns with Nash offered, or the Spurs dynasty, or the Warriors. Like, when you're that great of a team, Miami, when you're that great of a team and you're that expensive, that kind of has to be the selling point. But I think it's smart to like jump right to that and not waste any time being like, well, if you don't think Torrey Craig or Jock Landale or those guys are going to be able to take another step forward, then I like that they didn't necessarily waste their time saying, well, we owe it to them, or let's focus on continuity. Like, that's a pretty big change to wipe the whole slate clean when continuity had been such an emphasis for so long. But let's keep this going on the other side of one more break. We'll finally talk about Ishbia a little bit and some of those trades that you wondered about at the beginning. We'll do that right after this. Excited to tell you about my favorite Locked On sponsor going, Bird Dogs, and their wonderful shorts, pants, and more. I love them. I didn't know if I would. We got samples, and I have been addicted. I wear them constantly around the house. Just got a new work-from-home job. In addition to doing the podcast, you don't get to see the shorts, but they're there, I promise you. I'm rocking the hat. I'm using the tumbler. Everything I've tried has been awesome. And if you live in Arizona, like me, you need the sweat-wicking fabric. It just is what it is. But the biggest part is you look great as well. Bird Dog stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and give you a sculpted look. They fit way better than regular shorts made of that stiff, restricting cotton. And of course, that anti-stink sweat-wicking fabric makes them perfect for the valley and perfect for any occasion. Golf date, a workout, lounging around the house like I was. You can even wear them in the pool. Right now, you can also get a free water bottle when you go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at checkout. Take a look at their incredible offering. You won't want to take the Bird Dogs off. That's their promise. All right, we're closing out the show. Let's pick up on that idea around the continuity versus finally kind of starting fresh. And that's part of what I was getting at the beginning with Jones, that he just executes whatever is sort of the task at hand. And I think in this case, it's pretty admirable to pivot so hard from what the focus had been, which is like, even if it's Torrey Craig, even if it's Josh Okogie, even if it's campaign, we're going to give those guys time to flourish. Right. And now a little less so. We're going to trade campaign with, some money and just say goodbye, right? Like, it's just over now. So as we think about this season, and they have these two trade exceptions for Payne as well as for Dario Saric still, they've gotten some pick flexibility that they didn't have after the Durant and Beal trades. This is the last year they can trade cash, although I'm not even sure how much they're able to trade since they've already done that a couple times.
Right.
And then they have a possibility of a mid or a buyout player, but only if they make less than the mid level. So who's that really going to be, right? But what are you kind of keeping an eye on around what they might try to do? Is there a position you think? Is there a certain player you think a lot is riding on to step up? Like, what would that pressure or pushing toward another move look like if we did start to see it this year?
Right. Well, just a quick follow. Again with Ishbia. I mean, he's come in and he's shook it up. I mean, like literally, like you're literally watching some of these moves. I mean, and the use of the pick swaps, those are things that they didn't hardly do that before. You know what I mean? Like
I don't know if anyone did that before.
Right, exactly.
That was pretty crazy, right?
Right. I don't recall them doing that much, if at all, before. And now it's like you go, wow, like that's what So those are things that, and it shouldn't be a surprise that they were able to manipulate the financial situation, considering what he does for a living. Like that's why I say he had to be in the room, with some of the moves that they this isn't a surprise.
Same as the Durant trade, right? Like it was different. Right. Sarver was negotiating. He gets in there and it's like, send everything. I don't care. I'll pay it. I'll give it up. We don't have to have a future. It's done. Do it.
Right. So that's what I mean. Like he and again, will he continue to do that? But as far as when I'm looking at the team, like looking at the roster, Bobo, he's interesting. Like I'm literally trying to figure out how is he gonna fit with this? Where does he play? Who do you have him on the floor with? Like what can he like? He has such a unique skill set and ability, and obviously the frame. You're looking at a 7'2" guy that's rail thin, but he can handle the ball. Rebounds a little bit, block. Like he can do so many different things. But like, where does this guy fit in with this team? Like is he someone that if they can figure it out with him, could he be someone that could really inject something that takes them to a place that they maybe didn't think they could go with it? Or is this going to be just another stop and he ends up somewhere else and he's like on his fourth team in 6 seasons or 7? It's like what? I'm very curious about him. But as far as what they could do moving forward, point guard. Like are they going to go out and still be on the hunt for that, even if it's a backup? Are you going to ask Booker? Like this whole idea of multiple ball handlers, which is what Vogel talked about, multiple ball handlers that can, create and Kevin can create, Bradley can create. Obviously, Devin has improved in that area. But man, you're looking at that and going, boy, if they had someone that could set them up, or at least get them involved in different ways, this team could really be something. But Devin, he's about to be a super max guy next year. The 220, whatever that is, kicks in. So is this on him to be the one that has the ball in his hands at the end of games and making the right plays? And I've always, for me, when I watch him play, I would love to see him just go for his and try to average 30 in a season. That is not gonna happen. I've been wishing for it for 4 years. It's not happening. All right. He's at 27, but I would love to see if he could go out and win a scoring title. I think he's capable of doing that. Bradley Beal did it, then Devin Booker can do it too. But in this team, I think he's going to be the one that's initiating offense and creating for others. And I'm just curious to see if he can man that as well as that's having to score and do this. Do you go through 2 months of the season and go, you know what? All right, we need to go get somebody. We need to bring somebody in here to ease this off of him, because we're looking at him and it's like, man, can he maintain this? Not just for this year, but next year, the year after. because Durant's going to still be there. Bradley's Beal's still going to be there. So I'm curious to see point guard. Are they looking to bring someone in, even if it's a backup? And what do they do with, because they have a bunch of these guys, and eventually they'll figure out who's going to play. Like, that's so funny. And this, like you build a team and they have all the guys like, oh, wow. And then you go, well, only 10 of y'all going to play.
Yeah.
Only 10 of y'all going to play.
In the biggest games, 7-8 of you are going to play.
Right. Only 8 of y'all going to play in the big games. The games is going to be tight. So, like, you got all these pieces, then it becomes, okay, well, how do you utilize them? Like, how do you make all this work?
Yeah.
So, Bobo and point guard, how do they make? Do they ultimately decide to bring one in, even if it's just a backup, to help with that, or are they happy with what they got? Is a good one going to? Maybe good one is the answer. Maybe.
Sure.
Don't know.
What I would say is to add to what you're talking about is I do we don't see the trade exceptions often work out great. Sometimes teams just aren't even able to use them. And this team, it's going to really have to be that, or obviously we'll close with the other obvious possibility, but other teams around the league know what the rules are for what you're trying to do with your trade exception. And so they're not necessarily incentivized to go out of their way to help you out. Hey, do you just want our player? Like, okay, but I don't think we want to send him to you just for nothing. So I think that there will have to be a level of aggressiveness. It will probably feel like an overpay. It will probably feel not in line with the exact value of a player. We saw a lot of those. We saw a couple of those last year, the Crowder trade when he ended up going from Brooklyn after the Durant trade to Milwaukee, as well as the Rui Hachimura trade and maybe one or two others, where it's just like a bunch of second round picks. Do they just pile all their seconds up and send them to one team for one player? But it will have to kind of be aggressive. It will have to be probably sooner than the deadline. It'll probably have to be like, we're just picking one player that fits this, and we're just going to do everything we can to get them, But let's close here. Talking about trades and where things might go. The Suns with DeAndre Ayton, it's been a pretty, to me, their asking price has been seemingly pretty high, considering that they weren't going to accept, not pretty high like an all-star player or a great first-round pick or something, but high as in we're not dumping him, right? Like the Mavs offer that was out there, it's like, it seems like they were kind of intrigued by Tim Hardaway Jr. I don't really know why, but okay. And then now Buddy Hield is available. Maybe that'll get some traction. There's rumors he could be being talked about in some sort of Lillard machination. I don't know if that's real or not, but what do you think would have to happen for that asking price to go down for them in season and for them to feel like, let's just play this final kind of chip we have here?
Because, it's one of those deals where as you get closer to the deadline, then you start looking at it and going, this isn't, if it's not working, then it becomes, okay, this isn't, if it's not working, okay, this isn't working. We got to just cut our losses here and let's just get something that we think can help us. And so that's where they may end up being if it's not working. The hardest part is going to be, remember when, even a couple of years ago, they were getting down close to the trade deadline. They were rolling and you were looking at them and you were going, are they going to do something? Like, why would they do something? Like we're winning. And then now you
the
go
64 win season.
The 64 win season. Like, why would they do something? Then when you got in the playoffs, it was like, maybe they should have did something. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
So it's like, that's a hard thing to do, is to make a move when you're rolling. And this has an opportunity where they could be rolling. And then you're like, we're gonna just ride this out. Whereas if it's not necessarily rolling to their liking, then that's when you get towards the end, maybe a month out from the deadline. Because I still think by end of December, you'll know what you got. Like they will have, you'll know what kind of team you're gonna have moving forward. So they might be in that January, like, we need to start looking and seeing what let's reduce what we've been asking for. But then it's also, you might find a team that is more, that's more desperate and be maybe willing to give up something that you've been really wanting. Like you team maybe out there, you're like, okay, well, that's what we've been wanting is that. Okay, we're looking at that team, and you can go with them like, look, man, give y'all Aiden if you see where y'all at.
Well, and they may not have to look too much further than the team that we just were talking about that they discussed a trade with in June, which was Dallas, right? It's hard to look around the league and find a much better partner for a deal than that. And, I think just to kind of use them as an example, it's like, it seems like the package, well, they cut JaVale McGee now. So that was a sticking point, like trying to get a team to take back a player that they moved on from, who's already not, productive anymore. Like that felt a little disingenuous from Dallas in the first place, but he's gone now. So it's something around Rashawn Holmes and Tim Hardaway Jr. But from there, what changes? Like, to me, could it be a pick? Could it be Josh Green, who I think would inevitably come up if I'm James Jones and I want some of those, mid-prime vet type guys who are about to break out and do something better on a good team. I mean, Dallas has been a pretty good team, but what can he do on a great team where he's having to do even less? Something like that. And I do think those are the conversations that will happen, but I don't know. I mean, the thing that I always come back to with him is just they've set themselves up in a way where he's pretty important to what they want to do. And so, if the selling point is like, okay, Josh Green or a pick gets added in there or something else, like, great. That sounds good in terms of value. But so now my center rotation is Drew Eubanks and Rashawn Holmes going into a title run. Like, that's not doable, right? That's not tenable. So you have to get a center back for him, basically, or you have to feel good that you're going to get a center some other way, but good luck, So I don't know. The more I think about it, I don't know, outside of just being crazy aggressive with one of these exceptions and putting a bunch of picks on the table and getting the next Rui Hachimura, who really impacts things down the stretch for a good team. I'm not really sure what aggressiveness would be in season, because they just don't have a lot of stuff left to do here. But maybe that protects somebody like Ishbia from some of his more extreme instincts. If it's just like, our hands are tied, Matt, I don't know what to tell you.
Right. We're gonna I'm not in a position to do what the call is for. And then but Dallas, if anybody needs a big, it's Dallas. You literally watching them right now, and you look at Dwight Powell and you go, no, this isn't going to get you where you want to go. Good player, active, live body. No, you put DeAndre with Luka and Kyrie. Now you got something that's like, whoa, like this right here. You can put some stuff around them and make it work. But then it becomes your son. You're like, okay, well, look, we're really helping you with giving you Aiden. So you really got to be helping us. And what are you willing to give us that makes us feel good about this? And so that's where, and I've said this so many times, I'm gonna just say it again. The fear of DeAndre Ayton is you trade him and he becomes what you want him to be. To live with that is going to be like, I mean, you if you're the Suns and you trade this guy and he ends up being that guy, it's like for 5-7 years, and you're living with that, and you're seeing that either twice a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year, depending on where he goes. That's hard, man. That's a hard thing.
It is hard, but at the end of the day, I think, if it is a move that precipitates you eventually winning a title, then
you don't care. Right.
Exactly, right? It's the same thing as, it sucked to get rid of Mikal Bridges. That was not something you do easily. You would have liked to do that trade and somehow keep him, but if Kevin Durant brings you your first championship, then none of it matters, right? So I think it would have to be a deal that made them feel like it either kept them afloat on their way to winning a championship or somehow made them even better, which, again, I'm skeptical we'll see. But that will wrap us up for today. I think that's a good encapsulation of some of the different things going on, big picture, culturally, leadership-wise with this organization. You can read Duane at the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com for daily great coverage on the Phoenix Suns. And I will be back tomorrow, although less than tomorrow by the time you're hearing this, first thing Friday with part, 10 of the preview series. And we have 3 more to go next week. So hit follow or subscribe. Get every single one of those episodes as well as many more throughout training camp and beyond in your feed. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.